Hello. So, suicide is a moral and spiritual issue. And let me start by saying that it will be good if we can reduce suicides to zero using persuasion, reason, and kindness. Suicides are tragic, and it will be good if we can have all humans experiencing happiness and wanting to live on Earth. But right now, suicide is all too often medicalized. Suicide is treated as a mostly or completely medical issue, which, in my opinion, results in dehumanization and psychiatric human rights abuses. I encourage you to read the book Suicide Prohibition, The Shame of Medicine by psychiatrist Thomas Szasz, and I also encourage you to read his other book, Fatal Freedom, The Ethics and Politics of Suicide. So suicide is when someone ends their own life. It's a personal and moral issue and decision that results in a medical issue. Ceasing of vital life functions is a medical issue, but the behavior of someone engaging in suicide, well, it's a behavior, and it stems from personal motivations and reasoning. If somebody is going to engage in suicide, they have reasons for doing so. So to simply medicalize it is often to ignore or negate those issues. Right now, the year is 2019, and in the last 10 to 15 years, in the United States, the suicide rate has gone up by maybe somewhere between 20 and 40%. You could look that figure up yourself. So it's gotten worse. We've not gotten better at reducing suicides. And right now, we rely heavily on force, coercion, and confinement. We use society, hospitals, psychiatrists, social workers. They use psychiatric coercion, force, and confinement to forcibly try to stop adults from engaging in suicide. For adults, suicide should be respected as a civil and human right. And again, it will be good if we can reduce suicides to zero, but I think the only way to get close to that is to only rely on persuasion, reason, and kindness to try and reduce suicides for adults. Suicide is a spiritual issue because it involves the afterlife. When somebody ends their own life, they are apparently, ostensibly thinking that whatever happens after death is probably better than what they're currently experiencing on Earth. So sometimes suicide is explicitly a spiritual and theological issue, but more often it is probably an implicit theological and spiritual issue, because the person that is going to or wanting to engage in suicide is believing and feeling that whatever happens after death is probably better than what's going on Earth. Furthermore, if somebody is an atheist, they may have specific beliefs about the afterlife, like nothing happens. They're gone. Their consciousness it disappears. So that is a spiritual or theological belief, even though it stems out of atheism. And an agnostic may say they don't know what happens, and then a Christian or a Buddhist or a Muslim or a Hindu person may have their own opinion. But without a doubt, there are spiritual and theological ideas connected to suicide, because suicide, when completed, takes somebody to the afterlife, whether it's nothing or something. And suicide is a moral issue because an adult may have responsibilities on Earth. They may have children or family or a spouse or friends, and suicide can affect those that they know, but again, ultimately it's a personal decision people make. And I'm not encouraging suicide, and just like I said before, it will be good if we can reduce suicides to zero. My point is that if we ever want to get close to reducing suicides to zero, we need to rely on persuasion, reason, and kindness. Suicide prohibitions have a chilling effect on free speech. I've worked as a counselor, And when there is the implicit threat of psychiatric coercion, force, and confinement on an adult who wants to end their own life, they're not going to be willing to have an open and honest conversation about suicide. And if we want to be able to have adults being able to express their thoughts and feelings openly and honestly so they can have an open and honest conversation to try and hopefully resolve problems related to their personal distress, we need to stop effectively outlawing suicide. So again, please read the books by psychiatrist Thomas Szasz, Fatal Freedom, The Ethics and Politics of Suicide, and Suicide Prohibition, The Shame of Medicine. So suicide is a moral issue, and it's also immoral to use force, coercion, and confinement on adults who try to engage in suicide or say they want to. It has a chilling effect on free speech, and arguably helps to increase the size of the psychiatric survivor movement, because many people who experience psychiatric coercion, force, and confinement find it quite traumatizing. So suicide is a moral issue and is a spiritual issue. But currently, we often, all too often, simply medicalize it, which is dehumanizing and irresponsible because it has a chilling effect on free speech and probably makes the problem worse ultimately. So I hope that's some food for thought. I'll post more on this later probably. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe, watch my videos, visit my websites, read my books, listen to my music, support me on Patreon, and have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, or night, whenever and wherever you may be. Cheers, and limitless peace.